How's everybody doing? Great to be learning with you on a Wednesday. Tu B'Av, the Jewish Valentine's Day. How's everybody doing? Let's light up the darkness. Very special day for me. So today is my last Kaddish that I've been saying for my mom. So in the Jewish tradition, when your parent dies, the male child is obligated to say Kaddish for the parent. And you don't do it for a year, right? You always do it for 11 months, 1 year minus a month. And you do it for 11 months, even if it's a 13-month year, right? Which is when we have a leap year. We double the month of Adar, and there's 13 months in the year. That's how the Jewish calendar works. But even in a leap year, and this is not one of those, but even in a leap year, you say Kaddish for 11 months and not the 12 months. And that's because somewhere in the Talmud it says, that when we say Kaddish for a parent, it helps them, right, in their journey in the next world. And if the parent, if you knew that the parent was in Gehenna, in a bad place, then you would do the 12 months. But we don't assume that anyone's parent is there. And for that reason, it's just a tradition that everybody's parent gets 11 months of Kaddish. And then 1 month later, or 2 in a leap year, we would observe the yahrzeit, the actual anniversary of the death. So for 11 months, I've been saying Kaddish for my mom 3 times a day, or 3 prayer services every day. In the morning, there's 2 mourners Kaddishes and 2 rabbis Kaddish that the mourner says. And then if you daven from the Amud, meaning you lead the prayers, then there's additional Kaddishes that are said during the service, the whole Kaddish, the Kaddish Shalom, and the Hatzi Kaddish. But at any rate, it's been a real journey. I think I shared this story here with the class that when my mom died and we were at her funeral in Florida last September, something happened that no one had ever seen before. And let me preface this by saying that my mom, who is just a vivacious, really upbeat, fun, interesting, wonderful character, also a learner. She was a lifelong learner. She didn't become an observant Jew like us, but she always loved learning. And I think that if she hadn't developed the frontal lobe dementia 10 years ago, I suspect she would have come on this journey with us. She never saw accidental Talmudist and what it became, and I know it would have given her a lot of nachas, a lot of joy and pride. But she was always a learner, and as an adult, got herself a master's degree going to night school. She was a hospital pharmacist and later became an editor of a pharmaceutical journal. Research was always a part of it. But anything that she was involved in, going on a trip, buying a product, she loved to do the research and just learn about something new. And at her funeral, when we were, I think we hadn't said the first mourner's Kaddish yet, but we were doing the actual burial, right? So the coffin was lowered, and then the rabbi, who was a Chabad rabbi there in that area of Florida, and he explained to some of the people there who weren't Jewish or weren't familiar with an Orthodox funeral that we bury our dead, right? We don't rely on the cemetery workers to do the actual shoveling of the dirt. If you don't have enough people there, sometimes you have to, but ideally it's the mourners themselves, the family, the relatives, the friends, who actually do the shoveling of the dirt to fill up the grave, if at all possible. And so the rabbi explained that, and then he picked up a shovel and did the first couple shovelfuls. And when he did that, the book that was in his pocket, which was a siddur, a prayer book, but a special prayer book that rabbis have for life cycle events. So it just has this sort of order of the service for a funeral, for a bris, for other kinds of events like that, a circumcision or other kinds of events like that, a wedding. And that book was in his pocket for him to officiate the funeral. And when he shoveled in that dirt, the book fell out of his pocket and into my mom's grave. So everyone was like, now what? And the funeral director stepped forward and said to the rabbi, I can have one of my guys, go down and get it for you. And the rabbi said, no, we'll just let it stay there. And I looked at Nina and I thought, oh my gosh, Mom wanted the book. She's going on this journey into the next world. I'm going to be saying Kaddish for her for the next 11 months. I've been praying every day with a minyan for quite a while, but not as a mourner. And as a mourner, as a child, you bring additional merit to your parent if you daven from the Amud, right? If you lead the prayers from the front of the room. And I'm a Baal Tshuva, right? I became observant as an adult much later in life. I didn't go to yeshiva. The guys that I pray with have been doing this all their lives. They all speak Hebrew, either fluently or very well. They have a fluency with prayer that's just so innate that, for me to step in front of that room, a Hasidic shul, it's a Hasidic shul that I daven in every day. Our minyan on Shabbos is a little bit more diverse, some Hasidic, some modern Orthodox, some Sephardic, some Sfard, some Ashkenaz. It's more of a mix. It's all from Orthodox, but more mixed. But the shul I daven in every day is very much a Hasidic shul. And for me to lead prayers in such a room, so far out of my comfort zone, I feel like such an imposter. It's been so awkward. Like I got used to it. I got better at it. I feel like I'm approaching, semi-competence now. But still, it's a merit to my mom, right? So in some tiny way, it helps her in her journey in the next world that her son is leading prayers here. And since that's the shul where I daven, that's the shul where I'm going to lead the prayers. And so I just did it. And I feel like I've been on that journey with my mom, and I think she knew what was coming because at that point she was a soul in the next world, and I'm sure had far-reaching vision. And she said, well, son, if we're going to go on this journey together, I want to read up and see what you're doing. And so she took the book with her. So at any rate, I'd like to dedicate our learning today to my mom, Babette Bas Yoel, right? Yoel is my Hebrew name, and it was my grandfather's Hebrew name. Her father, who perished tragically in a concentration camp at Dachau, she never met her father. He was taken away when my grandmother was pregnant, and my mom never met her dad. But she named me, my Hebrew name, after him. And his Hungarian name was Imre. At any rate, dedicating today's class to my mom, Babette Bas Yoel, in English, Catalina Litvak, but all her friends called her Kathy. Kathy Litvak. Nina, if you're watching, maybe bring in that picture that we have on the fireplace. We could just show people what she looks like. But anyway, please join me in dedicating our learning today to Kathy Litvak's memory. May her soul have a tremendous elevation in the world of souls. And after we complete today's class, a few minutes after that, I'll go to Mincha Maariv, so the afternoon prayer and the evening prayer, and I'll say the final Kaddish and lead the prayers this last time as a mourner at the Mincha, at the afternoon service, and then I'll step just into the congregation because once you finish saying Kaddish, then you don't lead the prayers until the yahrzeit. That's how the tradition goes. You can lead prayers all year, but then once you reach the end of Kaddish, you don't lead the prayers until the yahrzeit, and then you can do it again. And so thank you, Nina. This is my mom, Kathy Litvak. She was really pretty. I don't think there's much of a resemblance, but some people say I look a little bit like her. But that smile tells you a lot. She was a lot of fun. My mom was really a lot of fun. And I believe this picture was taken like on a vacation in the 1970s. Okay. Let's do some learning. Who's in the house? Yehuda in South Carolina, Sharon in Lebanon, New Jersey, Bill in Missouri, Nancy in North Carolina, Guy in Ohio, Paul in the Great Northwest, Shandor in the Bronx, Bella in Florida, Leona in Illinois, Ryan in Jacksonville, Hannah in Texas, Duncan in Alabama. Yehud and people saying amen, thank you, you're so kind. And Aoife in Florida, Marjorie, Michelle in Washington, and Craig. Va va vu. All right, welcome everybody. Let's do some learning. Our daf is Ayin Dalet, page 74 here in Tractate Gittin, the 19th volume of the Talmud. We're working our way through chapter 7 today, opening Mishna number 5 here in chapter 7. And we're, like 3-4, well, depends how the thing is paginated, but a few paragraphs down from the top of 74a. Mishnah number 5. If a husband says to his wife, "This is your bill of divorce, on the condition that you will give me 200 dinars, then she is divorced and must give 200 dinars in order to fulfill the condition of the bill of divorce." Let's just stop for a second. That sounds terrible. The guy says, "Here, your divorce on condition that you pay me," and then they're instantly divorced. And she has to pay? Like, she has no choice in the matter? What's going on here? Let me just make sure we're not frozen. Okay. So that sounds a little, we're not frozen, right? Okay. It sounds a little bit alarming, like she has no choice and she has to pay in order to get this divorce from him. But that's not what they're saying. That's not what the Mishnah says. The sort of English translation sounds like that, but that's not. If the husband says, "This is your get, your bill of divorce, on condition that you pay me 200 dinars, what's actually happening is that if she chooses to pay the 200 dinars, then they're going to be divorced, but the divorce is going to be effective from the moment that he handed her the get, not when she gives the 200 dinars. That's what's really being explained here. And that's similar to what we were talking about in the previous Mishnah, right? This is your get from now. If I die later, right? And he has to say the from now language, or otherwise it's not going to be a valid get. But if he does say that, then even when he dies later, that get is valid retroactively to the moment that it was given. So it's something related to that. We don't have that from now language here, but as we'll see, it works in a similar fashion. That's the first clause of the Mishnah. If a husband says to his wife, "This is your get on the condition that you will give me money from now until the end of 30 days, meaning you will give me this money within the next 30 days, then if she gives him the money within that 30 days, she is divorced. And if not, she is not divorced, right? The condition was, this is your get if you give me such and such amount of money within 30 days. So if she gives it on the 32nd day, okay, so the condition wasn't met. She can give him the money, not give him the money, but it's not going to trigger a divorce. Now you can almost start to get a sense that what's going on here, remember the right to divorce under Jewish law, to initiate that divorce, right? It's the husband gives the wife the get. So it's like he has control. And that's why we have that issue that sometimes comes up where a woman, wants to get a divorce and can't get it. Now, in that situation, the community will step in and force the husband to give the get. But that's an issue for another day. what we're seeing here, as you can imagine, it's like the woman wants a divorce, the guy's not, so ready to give it, and so he finally just says, fine, you want to get divorced so bad, give me so much, give me X number of dollars, and then you can have your divorce. And she gives, right? Or maybe she gives it in a week. So when did they become divorced? When he gave the get at that moment, or when she gives the money later? Does the condition really work if he gives a time limit? Yes, it does. Continuing the Mishnah. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel said there was an incident in the city of Sidon involving one who said to his wife, this is your get on the condition that you will give me my coat. And she lost his coat so that she could not give it to him. And the rabbis said that she must give him the value of the coat. And by doing so, she fulfills the condition and she's divorced. That's the Mishnah. Here's the Gemara. The Mishnah teaches she is divorced and must give the money. And the Gemara asks, what is the meaning of and must give? And Rav Huna says she is divorced immediately once the bill of divorce has been given over to her, and she must give him the money subsequently in order to fulfill the condition. The bill of divorce takes effect retroactively from the time when it was given after she gives the money. Rabbi Yehuda says she is divorced only when she gives him the sum. Now, in both those cases, when they say she must give the money, meaning to trigger the divorce. If she doesn't give the money, there's no divorce because that's what the condition was keyed on. Not that she has no choice. The husband actually gives her more power than she would have had previous to his statement because he could always just give her a divorce if he wants. If he says this is your divorce on condition that, now she has a choice whether to give that money or not. What they're arguing about is from when does the divorce take effect? From when he gives this conditional get or from when she satisfies the condition? Now the Gemara asks, what is the difference between the opinion of Rav Huna and the opinion of Rav Yehuda? And the Gemara answers, there is a difference between them if the bill of divorce was torn or lost after she received it, but before she gave the money. According to the opinion of Rav Huna, who says, and she must give the bill of divorce, according to Rav Huna, who says, and she must give, but the bill of divorce takes effect retroactively. And if it was torn or lost, then she does not require a second bill of divorce because it took effect retroactively. So even though the get was damaged later, it doesn't matter because it was already given to her, right? And when she satisfies the condition, retroactively, it becomes clear that they were divorced from the moment that he gave her the get. By contrast, Rav Yehuda says that the divorce takes effect only when she satisfies the condition, in this case by giving him this sum of money. Therefore, if the document is torn or lost, she requires a second get from him, as in his opinion, it is not yet a valid get until she has given the money, so that if the document, the get itself, was torn between the time when he originally stated the condition and when she actually pays the money, then he hasn't given her the get yet. They're going to have to replace the get so that it becomes a valid divorce. Now the Gemara comments, and it was also taught in the Mishnah with regard to betrothal, that Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda also disagreed about a case like this. As we learned in a Mishnah in our next tractate, Tractate Kiddushin, on page 60a, if one says to a woman, you are hereby betrothed to me on the condition that I will give you 200 dinars, then she is betrothed and he must give the sum. And it was stated that Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda disagreed with regard to what is the meaning of and he must give. Rav Huna says, and he must give, meaning that she is betrothed immediately, provided that the husband gives what he promised. And Rav Yehuda said she is betrothed only when he gives. In other words, he must give in order to create a betrothal. Just like in our Mishnah, she must give the money in order to create a divorce. Once she does it, its effective date, that's what they're arguing about, whether it's when the money was given or when the get was originally given with that condition attached. Now the Gemara asks, okay, and so in the case of the betrothal, what is the difference? Like, what is going to be the practical, effective difference? And the Gemara answers there's a difference between them in a case where she extended her hand and received betrothal from another man before the first man gave her the money that he promised. Rav Huna says, and he must give, meaning that it is merely a condition that he accepted upon himself. He fulfills his condition and moves on, and the woman is betrothed to him immediately. Therefore, her betrothal to the second man has no validity. Rav Yehuda says, when he gives, which means that when he gives her the money, it will be a valid betrothal. But as of now, it is not a valid betrothal, and therefore the betrothal of the second man who came along before the guy gave the money that he said, this is your betrothal on condition that I will give you 200 dinars, but before he gave the 200 dinars, another guy jumped in and betrothed the woman, and she accepted it. The first betrothal was never finalized, so the second betrothal is valid. And that's the difference between Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda, right? Where Rav Huna says, basically, he must give means that when he gives, and then retroactively valid from the moment the get was given. Rav Yehuda holds, and when he gives, it becomes valid only at the time that the condition is fulfilled. Now the Gemara comments, and it is necessary to mention this dispute between Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda in both the case of divorce and the case of betrothal, as if it would have taught us their opinions only with regard to betrothal. Then one may think that it is specifically with regard to this case that Rav Huna says, and he should give, because he comes to draw her close in marriage. Consequently, he does this willingly, and therefore there is an assumption that his intention was for the betrothal to take place immediately. Right? I mean, the guy is saying, I want to betroth you on condition that I give this money, so we can assume that what he wants is a betrothal, and therefore it would make sense that the betrothal is valid from the moment that they created the conditional betrothal, and then it's just ratified, as it were, when the money changes hands, but they're betrothed from that first moment. Whereas, when he's saying this is your divorce, bill of divorce on condition that you give me money, it's like he's putting her off. He's stalling. He doesn't really want to divorce her. So we might think, okay, in that situation where the underlying assumptions and emotions are different, perhaps there we're only going to create the the timing of the divorce to be effective from when the money changes hands and not when the conditional get was given. Right? So with regard to Rav Huna's opinion, but with regard to divorce, where he comes to distance her, there is an assumption that he does so unwillingly, so that he makes the divorce dependent on a condition in order to delay the matter. Therefore, say that Rav Huna concedes to Rav Yehuda that the divorce does not take effect until the condition has been fulfilled. That's not the case, but this is why the Gemara had to state both situations to explain the dispute between Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda. And if you would have taught us their opinions only with regard to divorce, then one may think that it is specifically with regard to this case that Rav Huna says, and she must give, because he is not embarrassed to demand the money from her afterward to fulfill the condition of the bill of divorce. And his intent was to divorce her immediately. But with regard to betrothal, where she is embarrassed to demand the money that he promised would come from him, she may not agree to be betrothed to him until she actually receives the money. Therefore, you might say that Rav Huna concedes to Rav Yehuda that the betrothal is valid only once he gives her the money. And to counter that idea, the Gemara teaches us the law in both cases, right? In both cases, Rav Huna says that the get or the betrothal are effective immediately, but only retroactively after the money changes hands. But the effective date is when the document is given, whereas Rabbi Yehuda says, even though you're giving the document now, either of the get or the betrothal, but in fact, the couple does not become divorced or the couple does not become betrothed until the condition is fulfilled. And furthermore, if the Gemara had taught us their opinions only with regard to betrothal, then one might think that it is specifically with regard to this case that Rav Yehuda says that betrothal is valid only when he gives her the money because she is embarrassed to demand it from him if he does not give it to her. Therefore, his intention is that she will be betrothed only once the condition is fulfilled. But with regard to divorce, where the husband is not embarrassed to demand the money from her, you might say that Rav Yehuda would concede to Rav Huna that the bill of divorce takes effect immediately. Therefore, since that's not true, is why it's spelled out. And finally, and furthermore, it would have taught us, if the Gemara had taught us only with regard to the case of divorce, then one might think that it is specific with regard to this case that Rav Yehuda says that the divorce is valid only when she gives him the money because the husband comes to distance her. But with regard to betrothal, where he comes to draw her close, you might say that Rav Yehuda would concede to Rav Huna. Therefore, it is necessary to state the dispute between Rav Yehuda and Rav Huna in both the cases of betrothal and divorce. Now, the Gemara raises an objection based on what was taught in a Baraisa at Tosefta 7.5. If one says to a woman, this is your get, your bill of divorce, on the condition that you will give me 200 dinars, then, even though the get was torn or lost, she is divorced, and she may not marry another man until she gives her first husband the money. In other words, until the divorce becomes a divorce, right? The condition has to be met. So if she doesn't pay the money, this is your bill of divorce on condition that you give me money. So if she doesn't pay the money, they are not divorced, right? Now, the fact that the get was torn in between, let's see how this plays out. And it is taught further in that same Baraisa, if one says to his wife, this is your get on the condition that you will give 200 dinars to me, and the husband died without children, if she had already given him the money, then she is not bound with a levirate bond to the surviving brother because she gave the money. He gave her conditional divorce, contingent on money, and she gave the money. So they were divorced. So when the guy died, she was not a widow. She's already a divorcee. So she has no bond to his brother, no yibum bond, no levirate bond. But if he gave her a conditional divorce, this is your get on condition that you pay me 200 dinars, and before she pays the money, the husband dies, then what? But if she had not given him the money, then she is bound with a levirate bond to the yavam, the surviving brother, because the bill of divorce did not take effect, and so therefore, when he died, she becomes a widow, not a divorcee. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says she should give the money to her late husband's father or to his brother or to one of the relatives who inherit from him. And by doing so, she fulfills the condition and is released from the levirate bond. Now that's very interesting, right? The guy dies in the meantime. So the get that he gave her was, this is your get on condition that you give me 200 dinars. She never gave the money. He died. Simple answer, right, is what the majority says. Okay, he died. They were married. She has a yibum bond to the brother. She wants to go marry someone else. She just has to perform halitza with the brother. The problem would be if the brother's out of the country and not coming back in the foreseeable future. Then she's not free to marry until that brother shows up to perform the halitza ceremony. But Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, well, wait a minute, we have a conditional get. If you can pay that money, then the divorce takes effect retroactively from when your living husband gave you the get. But how are you going to pay a dead man the money? He didn't have children after all, that's why there's a yibum situation. Okay, but a person who dies, even without children, has other relatives who can inherit. So if she pays the money to his estate, as it were, to his inheritors, then that should trigger that the get was retroactively valid from the moment it was given, and so she was divorced even before he died. Again, retroactively clarified, and then she would be free to marry. Does this work? Well, as we'll see, It's going to be triggered on the exact language of the condition when he gave her the get. He says, this is your get on condition you pay 200 dinars. Or, this is your get on condition you pay me 200 dinars. Is there a difference between those statements? Let us see. Now the Gemara notes, the first Tana and Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel disagree only with regard to the meaning of the condition, right? If you pay 200 dinars versus if you pay me 200 dinars. Does if you pay me 200 dinars, does that include my inheritors if I die, right? On the condition that she will give the money to me, he meant to me specifically and not to my heirs. Consequently, she cannot fulfill the condition by giving the money to his heirs. But the other sage, right, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, who disagrees with the majority, he interprets, you should give the money to me, does work if she gives it to the heirs, right? And one sage, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, holds that when the husband said that she will give the money to me, he meant, and even to my heirs. But in any event, everyone agrees that this is a valid condition. Yet, its fulfillment does not change the date that the get takes effect. This is a conclusive refutation of the opinion of Rav Yehuda, who said that the get takes effect only when she gives, right? So what happened here, we brought in this example about a guy who dies after giving this conditional get, where what they're arguing about is whether she can give the money to his heirs now that he has died in order to trigger that the get took effect while the husband was still alive. So even though the majority and Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel disagree on whether give me 200 dinars includes my heirs or not, what both the majority and Rabban Shimon Gamliel in his minority opinion agree on is that the effective date of the divorce is when the get was given, not when the money was paid. So this would seem to be an effective proof to refute Rav Yehuda's position that the effective date of the divorce is when the condition is fulfilled, as opposed to retroactively when the get was given. And the Gemara answers, not so fast. Rav Yehuda could have said to you, in accordance with whose opinion is this Baraisa? It is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Rebbe. Oh, we were talking about the majority, and we were talking about Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. Who was talking about Rebbe? Rav Yehuda brings in Rebbe. What does Rav Huna say? What does Rav Yehuda says? As Rav Huna says, that Rebbe says, anyone who states a condition employing the language on the condition that such and such will happen, when you use this language, this is like one who states, the agreement will take effect retroactively from now, even though the condition is fulfilled only later. But the majority disagree with him. And I say my ruling in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis. That's what Rav Huna says. And Rabbi Zera says, when we were in Babylonia, we would say with regard to this following statement that Rav Huna says, that Rebbe says, anyone who states a condition employing the language of on the condition is like one who states the agreement will take effect retroactively from now. So that sounds like Rav Huna's position. Even though the condition is fulfilled only later on. And we would say that the rabbis disagree with him. When I ascended to Eretz Yisrael, I found Rabbi Asi, who was sitting and saying in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, everyone concedes that with regard to anyone who states a condition employing the language of on the condition, he is like one who states the agreement will take effect retroactively from now. So that would be Rav Huna's position. But the majority disagreed with Rebbe only in a case where the bill of divorce included the condition from today and after my death. Plot thickens. 74b. And it is taught in a baraisa, if a husband says to his wife, this is your bill of divorce from today and after my death, then this is both a valid bill of divorce and not a valid bill of divorce. And this is the statement of the rabbis. Rebbe disagrees and says a case like this is a valid get without any uncertainty. And this teaches that Rebbe and the rabbis disagree only in this case. But everyone agrees that in all other cases, when he employed the language on the condition, right, on the condition that, and then whatever that condition is fulfilled, that it is as though he stipulated from now, right? From now. So that sounds again like Rav Huna's right and Rav Yehuda's wrong. Rav Yehuda said, this is your get on the condition that you give me 200 dinars. So when the wife gives the husband 200 dinars, it's at that moment that they become divorced. That's Rav Yehuda. Rav Huna says when the wife gives him the 200 dinars, it becomes retroactively effective from the moment that he actually gave the get and stated his condition. So it sounds like in almost all cases, it's like Rav Huna. Because it just generally speaking, when we use in a legal framework the language on the condition that, it's not going to become, have an effective date of when the condition is met, but rather when the parties made the agreement. Okay, where am I? So the Gemara asks, and according to Rav Yehuda, who said that Rebbe and the rabbis disagree about one who employs the language on the condition, rather than disagreeing with regard to the case where the husband died, in that other case of from today and after my death, let them disagree with regard to the case where the husband said on the condition. So the Gemara answers that the Baraisa uses this case to inform you about the far-reaching nature of the opinion of Rebbe, who is certain that the get is valid. So the Gemara challenges. And let them disagree about a different matter. On the condition, maybe the rabbis and Rebbe disagree about the use of the language on the condition to convey to you the far-reaching nature of the opinion of the rabbis, the majority, who do not hold that the phrase on the condition is considered to be like the phrase from now, as this ruling is a more general matter. And the Gemara answers, it is preferable to emphasize the power of leniency. And therefore, it is preferable to teach the degree to which Rebbe is lenient. Because generally speaking, in Jewish law and halacha, it is easier to be stringent and to say, no, you can't do that, than to be lenient and say, yes, you can. Right? Because yes, you can, it's like the posek, the rabbi who's making the ruling is taking a chance that he's wrong, and somebody relying on his opinion will commit an action that is a transgression. Usually, a stringency will lead people to not do an action in order to be stringent and to be careful. And so, if the rabbi's wrong, okay, they didn't commit a transgression. They just didn't do something that they should have been they should have been legally able to do. But it's safer to say no, right? It takes a great mind. It takes a gadol, one of the great ones of the generation, to create a leniency. And so the Talmud will emphasize leniencies that were created by the sages. Now the Mishna teaches, if a husband said to his wife, this is your get on the condition that you will give me the money within 30 days, right? In Hebrew or in Aramaic, it's worded from now until 30 days. But what that means is within 30 days. So if she gives the money to him within 30 days, she is divorced. And if she doesn't, and if she oh, my throat got dry. And if she doesn't give him the money within 30 days, then the condition has lapsed and that get is no good. If they want to start the divorce process again, they can, but that get that was given with a condition, give the money within 30 days, then the 30 days lapsed, end of get. Yes? Let's see. So if the Mishnah said, if he says, this is your get on condition, you give me the money within 30 days. If she gives money within 30 days, she's divorced. And if not, she's not divorced. So the Gemara asks, isn't that obvious? Since everything depends on whether or not the condition was fulfilled. And the Gemara answers, no, the law that the divorce does not take effect unless she gives the money by that time needs to be said. Right? I mean, it seems obvious. He said, this is your get on condition, you pay me within 30 days. So if she doesn't pay within 30 days, she's not divorced. Why does that need to be stated? The Gemara is saying, no, that has to be stated. Why does it need to be stated? Lest you say that the concern of the husband, that his wife give him the money within a specific time frame, this is not his real concern. And he comes only to galvanize her. Although he wishes to receive this money as soon as possible, in truth he does not care if he receives it later. Therefore it teaches us that his statement is a valid condition, and if she does not fulfill it, then it is not a valid bill of divorce. Like he might have said, fine, yeah, it's your get if you give me the money within 30 days, right? So the 30 days pass, and then she shows up on the 32nd day. As far as he's concerned, fine, okay, we're divorced. I mean, he's thought about it over this month, and now he's ready to move on. And he's ready to accept the money, and the couple's divorced. He's good with it. But legally, no good, because he created a get based on that condition. And when that condition wasn't met, that get became invalid. Now you might say, well, he can waive the condition. No. He made the condition when he gave the get. That condition accompanies the get. You can't waive it. The Mishnah teaches that Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel said there was an incident in the city of Sidon involving one who said to his wife, "This is your get on the condition that you will give me my coat." And she lost his coat. And the rabbi said that she should give him the value of the coat. And by doing so, she fulfills the condition and is divorced. And the Gemara asks, what did Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel teach before, such that he now teaches and cites an incident which is similar to it? This incident does not seem to be referring to what was stated immediately before it in the Mishnah. So the Gemara answers, the Mishnah is incomplete, and this is what it is teaching. If the husband said to his wife, "This is your get on the condition that you will give me my coat," and she lost his coat, and then, since he specifically stated to her, "Give me my coat," she cannot give him its value instead. And since she has lost the coat, the get is not valid. This is the opinion of the rabbis, the majority, right? So even if he's willing to accept some other coat or the value of the coat, what he said was, "This is your get on condition you give me my coat, my specific coat." Since that coat was lost, the condition can never be met, and they cannot get divorced based on that get that he gave her with that condition. Now they can create a new get and get divorced, of course. They're not bound to each other because the coat was lost. But since he created a condition and that condition cannot be met, they can't get divorced on that get. That's according to the rabbis. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, in such a case, she can give him its value. And Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel said in support of his statement, there was an incident where this happened in Sidon involving one who said to his wife, "This is your bill of divorce on the condition you'll give me my coat." And she lost his coat, and the rabbi said she could give him the value. Rabbi Asi raised a dilemma before Rabbi Yochanan. If a man says to his wife, "This is your get on the condition that you will give me 200 dinars," and afterward he returned and said to her, "It is waived for you," then what is the law? Well, didn't we just say he can't waive the condition? Well, but there's a difference. Once if he said, give me 200 dinars within 30 days, and then the 30 days passed, okay, so the condition was not met, and now it cannot be met. But if he says, the condition is waived for you, during the 30 days, or there was no 30 days, right? So he has the power. In other words, the situation is different. And let me read it to you. Right. So if she said, "Give me this is your get on condition that you will give me 200 dinars," and then he returned and said to her, "It is waived. What you don't have to pay." Then what is the law? And Rabbi Asi explained his question in detail. We can raise this dilemma according to the opinion of the rabbis, the majority, and we can raise this dilemma according to the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. If we raise the dilemma according to the opinion of the rabbis, one can say that only there do the rabbis state their opinion that she is not divorced if the condition is not fulfilled, and she gives him his coat because he did not waive his claim to it. But here he says it is waived for you, so they are divorced. Or perhaps one can say that even Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel states that she can be divorced even if he does not receive the coat only there, as she appeases him by giving him money, i.e. the condition is considered to be fulfilled due to the fact that he received the value of the coat. But in a case where he waives the condition entirely, no, because he does not receive anything from her. You can't say that the condition was met in some other way, like in the case of the coat that was replaced with the cost of the coat. Here he said, this is your get on condition, you give me a certain amount of money, and then he just says, you know what, you can have the divorce, you don't have to pay me the money. But there was a condition, and it was not met in any way whatsoever. So maybe Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, even Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel would say, no, there's no divorce here. So it could go either way, right? It could go either way. So we can't learn out from the case of the coat what's going to happen here when there was just a straight condition. This is your get on condition you give me 200 dinars, and then he changed his mind and says, the condition is waived. So what's going to happen? So Rabbi Asi raised an objection to his opinion from a Mishnah, Nedarim 63b. In the case of one who says to another person, benefiting from me is konam to you, meaning it is prohibited for you to derive any benefit from me, right? A person can do this. I can say, I hereby take a vow, bli neder, God forbid, I'm not really taking a vow, but for the purpose of teaching, I take a vow that, Tom right here will not derive any benefit from me or my possessions ever, all right? So that's in my power to do. So now I've taken a vow. Now, unless I get that vow dissolved by a halakhic authority, we're going to have a problem if I later change my mind and Tom and I need to do business, and now he needs to benefit from something of mine so we can do business. So what happens? Right? So one who says to another, benefiting from me is konam for you. So it's prohibited for him to derive benefit from me. But the vow had a condition. Benefiting from me is konam for you if you do not give my son 1 quart of wheat and 2 barrels of wine as a wedding gift. Okay, so I'm going to say you can never benefit from me again unless you give my son a nice wedding gift, and here's the minimum amount. So what have I said? Rabbi Meir says it is prohibited from this other person to benefit from the one who took the vow until he gives his son the gift. So I can make that a contingent vow, and if the guy doesn't fulfill the condition of giving my son a wedding gift, then he's never going to receive benefit from me again. I'm not changing his behavior vis-a-vis other people, but between me and him, I'm never going to allow him to benefit from my property again unless he gives my son a wedding gift. So Rabbi Meir says it works. But the majority, the rabbis who disagree with Rabbi Meir, say even this individual who took the vow can dissolve his own vow without seeking out a halakhic authority, without going to a rabbi who could release him from the vow. He doesn't even need that. And how does he do this? He does this by saying, I hereby consider it as though I have received the gift from you. Based on this Mishnah, it would seem that if the husband forgives his wife the money that she owes him, it should be considered as if he received it, and the bill of divorce would be valid. Right? I initially said to the wife, this is your get on condition you give me 200 dinars. A day passed, I say, you know what? You don't have to give me the 200 dinars. So it would seem like, so then we're divorced immediately at that point, right? And this Mishnah from Tractate Nedarim would seem to back it up, because I'm saying it's as if you already gave me the 200 dinars. You don't have to pay me because it's as if you did pay them to me. And the Gemara but the Gemara rejects this argument. How can these cases be compared, the case of the vow with the case of the get, the conditional get? There, in the case of the get, he intends to vex her until she pays him, and until she pays him, he did not vex her. If he forgives this condition, his initial intention has not been fulfilled. Whereas in the case of the conditional vow, the reason the father took the vow is for the sake of benefiting his son. But subsequently, the one who took the vow decides that it was not necessary. Therefore, he can waive the claim. I'm not sure I see the distinction, but okay.
So the Gemara relates an incident of a certain man who said to his sharecropper, everyone waters the field 3 times during the season, and they consume, meaning they receive as payment, 1/4 of the crops from the field. That's the sharecropper agreement in this region. So this owner of the land says to one of the sharecroppers, will you agree to water the land 4 times and consume as your payment 1/3 of the produce? In other words, if you'll agree to do the backbreaking work of watering the field an extra time, you'll be compensated with a larger percentage of the crops. Instead of 25%, you'll get 33% of the crops for yourself. So that's the deal that they made. Now, ultimately, rain came when the sharecropper would have needed to water the 4th time. And so he did not need to water the field a 4th time. The question was presented to the sages. Is the sharecropper still entitled to receive the additional produce that he would have gotten if he'd done this extra work of watering when the field didn't need the extra watering through no action of his own? They got lucky and more rain came that year than was usual. Rav Yosef said, well, he didn't water the field the 4th time, so the condition was not fulfilled. Consequently, he deserves the same as the other sharecroppers and receives only the 25% of the produce. Rabbah said, but it was not necessary to water the field the 4th time because the rain fell to the benefit of the sharecropper, and therefore he should receive 1/3 of the produce. In other words, the owner of the land got the land was watered. He got what he bargained for. The fact that the sharecropper got lucky and the rain did it for him and he had to do the work himself doesn't change the fact that the land got the water that it needed. And so, prior to knowing that the rain was coming, I think the owner of the land would have been happy to know that that the additional water was going to be there and was willing to give extra produce to the sharecropper to do it. So Rabbah says, give the sharecropper the extra money. So the Gemara asks, shall we say that Rav Yosef said his ruling in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis in the conditional get that we've been talking about, who require that the condition of the get be fulfilled, and that Rabbah said his ruling in accordance with the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, that it is not fulfillment of the specifics of the condition that matter, but fulfillment of the intent of the condition. And the Gemara asks, and how can you understand it in this way? But don't we maintain that in all of their disputes, the law is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbah when he disagrees with Rav Yosef? And with regard to this law, we maintain that the law is not in accordance with the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. If so, this presents a contradiction between one law and another. I'm almost done. Questions or comments, get them in. Rather, according to both opinions, this dispute is actually in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis. Rav Yosef clearly rules in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis, right? So if you have a conflict between Rabbah and Rav Yosef, Rabbah always wins as a matter of principle. But what if Rav Yosef agrees with a majority ruling and Rabbah agrees with a minority ruling? It would seem that in that situation, Rav Yosef beats Rabbah, right? Rav Yosef clearly rules in accordance with the majority, and Rabbah could have said to you, I was saying my statement even according to the opinion of the majority. As the majority are saying there that she is only divorced if she does not return the coat itself, only when the husband intends to vex her. And if she does not need to give the coat itself, she will not be vexed, as it is not difficult for her to give him its value. But here, in the case of watering the field, the reason the owner is making the condition is only for the sake of increasing his profit, and it was not necessary to actually water the field. That's where we're going to leave off for today. Let's see if we've got a couple of questions. Because the hour's relatively late. I gotta remember to push that refresh button on Google Docs earlier. Okay, Ifa. Regarding the conditional get, if wife pays. Says Ifa, if she doesn't want divorce, so she refuses to pay, she is still effectively divorced from the date on the get, so they remain married but cannot have lawful marital relations. No. If he says this is your get on condition that you pay 200 dinars, then it only becomes retroactively a divorce when she pays, right? But if she never pays, then they were never divorced.
Now you could say if she's intending to pay, then she should stop having marital relations with him. And he maybe should stop having marital relations with her because he's created this condition that she can fulfill. So actually making a good point. They should stop having marital relations because there's a chance that the condition is going to be fulfilled. And if it is fulfilled, then they're retroactively divorced from that date. So yes, they should stop having marital relations from that time. They didn't address that part of it here, but you're absolutely right. Sharon, there is a big difference between the get and the betrothal. Another man can step in and offer betrothal. The woman then has a choice. But only one man, the husband, can offer the get. Very good point. That's absolutely right. Michelle, because the condition of the get was not fulfilled before he passed, it should be that it was not fulfilled and he did not put language in it pertaining to the instance of if he were to pass away. So we're saying, in terms of like, can he hand the money to the heirs or not? And it sounds like handing the money to the heirs was only the minority opinion. But bottom line, he died, she hadn't paid yet, and only by Rebbe or Rabban Shimon Gamliel, by that minority opinion could he pay the heirs. But the majority say, no, he died, the condition had not been met, she's a widow. Right. Ifa, Ray conditional get requiring wife pay as much or more than her ketubah. Good, I was thinking about that myself. So that it strips her protection for the ketubah. Is this allowed? Are there any protections for the wife? Well, the protection, right, let's say that they had a standard ketubah, which I think at that time was 400 dinars, right? So if they had a standard ketubah, then if he divorces her or he dies, either he or his estate owes her 400 dinars. So the marriage is increasing friction, right? She would like to leave the marriage. He's like, not there yet. He doesn't want to give her the divorce. She's saying, I want the divorce. I want the divorce. He says, fine. You want a divorce? Give me 400 dinars, then you can have your divorce, right? Which he's saying you're not going to get any ketubah payment. Now, that sounds terrible, but I don't know that it's exactly unfair because she has a choice. She doesn't have to pay the money. She can wait it out. She can make his life miserable until he's going to give her the get for free, and then she will get the ketubah payment. I mean, there's obviously, every case is different. There's all kinds of emotions here. Like the rabbis in these discussions, he said, they had a little bit that he intends to vex her, by demanding this money. So they touch on a little bit of the emotion of the thing. But, anyone who's been through a divorce or, I'm sure people, family members, friends who've been through a divorce, it's terrible. It's so difficult, so emotional for everybody. Here, though, we're really just talking about the specific legality of did the divorce happen or not. Because the sage's concern here isn't so much helping the couple navigate this difficult time in their lives. They're concerned with, did a divorce happen? Right? Because if the language of the get or of the condition or the surrounding or the witnesses, if something went wrong in the actual divorce procedure and people believe they were divorced when they weren't, that's where you're setting up a real tragedy that she might go and remarry when she's not actually divorced. The second couple is illegitimate. The children of that union would be illegitimate, would be momsers. That's what the sages are really seeking to avoid. And that's what I've got for us today. So with God's help, we'll be together again tomorrow, Thursday at the regular time, 6 p.m. Pacific.